Welcome to Truck Chat, a video interview series coming to you from Work Truck. I'm Lauren Fletcher, Executive Editor of Work Truck, and today we're chatting with Steve Thompson, President of Coal Inc., doing business as Stanley Steemer in San Diego, California, and Adam Kahn, President, Commercial Fleet Business for Netrodyne. We're chatting all about how Stanley Steemer has piloted and tested Netrodyne's tech, as well as touching base with Netrodyne on camera tech, fleet safety, and more. This episode is being sponsored by Netrodyne. Netrodyne is an industry leader in fleet safety solutions, immediately improving driver behavior and fleet performance by harnessing the power of computer vision and edge computing to revolutionize the modern-day transportation ecosystem. Netrodyne collects and analyzes data points, and meaningful information so customers can improve retention, increase profitability, enhance safety, and enable end-to-end transparency. Today, we're going to start with Steve of Stanley Steemer. Steve, how are things going today?
Tremendous. Thank you for having me.
Awesome. So first, we're going to go ahead and get started talking about your business. Can you tell me a little bit about Stanley Steemer as a company?
Stanley Steemer is a nationwide company that we perform in-home services of carpet cleaning, upholstery cleaning, air duct cleaning, water damage restoration, mold remediation, anything to do with flooring, hard surface flooring, anything you need cleaned on the floor, we clean it. And we've been in San Diego since 1979. We have about 60 vehicles on the road, and we do about 75% of our business is residential homes, and we do a lot of commercial, industrial type things also.
So how are you utilizing technologies such as Netrodyne within your fleet to solve these challenges?
Well, we started using it thinking that it was going to provide certain solutions, and then unbeknownst to us, it provided lots of other solutions that we never even considered when we started this. Needless to say, having a fleet of trucks on the road, insurance is a major expense, and insurability is a major expense, because if you have a bad track record, before long, no one will talk to you because they don't want to insure your fleet. And part of our business, because it's labor intensive, usually we have younger people who are doing the work. And what comes with younger people sometimes are more challenging driving records. So over the years, we've put a lot of effort into safety on our vehicles. One of the things we did years ago was took advantage of General Motors program, where we have a governor where our trucks won't go over 75 miles an hour no matter what. And it was amazing how many problems that reduced just by itself, from rear-ender type collisions on freeways and things like that. So when we put the cameras in and the Netrodyne system, we knew that we expected a lot of little things. The ability to make sure they were stopping at stop signs, and that they were not tailgating. Obviously, tailgating, our vehicles weigh about 7,500 pounds with all the equipment in them, and they just simply won't stop as fast as most cars out on the road today. So having the cameras to be able to be alerted to people who are tailgating or not taking the right action when somebody cuts in front of them in busy traffic by slowing down or backing off, however you want to call it, we really thought that was going to be the big benefit and help us the most. What we learned later was how just having the system impacts the drivers. While at first, they don't like anybody spying on them, and they feel like you're invading their space and all those kind of challenges, it inadvertently reprograms them to drive safer, because they do realize it will be addressed. It will come up, and obviously, if you can't drive safe, you can't drive our trucks, and if you can't drive, you can't work. So there's just kind of a progressive correlation of how it gets better. And then with some of the improvements over the years, like the little voice that comes on to tell you that you just ran a stop sign, they don't want to hear the voice. So they stop for the stop sign. They don't do the traditional rolling stop. So there's just been so many little things on the safety side that we didn't realize we would gain. And then we also gained a bunch of operational things that we hadn't even thought about. We are very concerned about what our guys look like when they go to the door, because you only get one chance to make a first impression. And in most of our residential business, you'll find usually it's the lady of the house that's home, sometimes home alone or sometimes home with small children. And it can be very intimidating to have one or two strangers coming into your house.
Mhm.
And if they don't make a good first impression, um, sometimes that's not good. Well, we now have the luxury of knowing exactly what they're going to look like before they get there, to make sure that they're in their uniform, to make sure that they look neat, to make sure that they're shaved that morning or trimmed clean so they look nice. So that was just one of the small bonuses that we hadn't anticipated.
And small things can definitely add up. And I think for service fleets, there's definitely a lot of different angles and aspects that you have to worry about, not just speeding, but like you mentioned, how your drivers look when they're going to the door. So I think that's very interesting to hear that Metrodyne can provide those additional benefits.
Well, I may not have specific uh, detail to tell you our accidents are down X percentage, et cetera. Being a small business owner, you're very intimate in your business. If there's accidents, I have to handle it,
Mhm.
whether it's working with the people who we were in the accident with, or insurance companies, or whatever it may be. And in the last few years, we simply just don't have very many accidents. And I have to believe that a major contributor to that is having these cameras in the trucks, the guys knowing the cameras are in the trucks, the guys knowing we can see what really happened. And then we've had a couple occasions. We had an accident on the freeway that was a three vehicle accident. We were the we were the second vehicle in the
You were the
three
middle.
vehicle
Yeah,
accident.
you
Yeah,
were the middle, right?
we were in the middle. In the From the CHP report, they blamed us for the first accident, and then the second accident was different, and it created a problem with insurability and the claim. Well, it was amazing that with the video, and Adam helped me get this video, it clearly showed that we stopped and did not hit that first car, and that we were shoved into that first car by the vehicle behind us. So we were able to take that video on a thumb drive to the CHP and present it to them, and they amended the report, which had a huge impact financially on us and our insurance and everything else. If we had not had that video, that would have never happened. I mean, that was just an amazing victory. So it's a great it's just a great tool.
So great for additional added benefits beyond driver safety, but for exoneration as well.
Right, right. I mean, and sometimes you if you weren't there, you don't know what happened.
Mhm.
We were hit this year by a California fire truck up on a two-lane road, and what they said happened and what the video showed happened were not the same thing. And again, fortunately, our driver was not the one that caused the problem the way they wanted to make it out to be. If we hadn't had that video, um, we would have had a claim and an expense, and not only that, then you end up with points on your driver's license. And if you, in commercial insurance, everybody knows they don't like bad drivers. So before long, now maybe you have to lose a great employee with a driving record problem, and maybe he didn't deserve to have that problem. So it's just another tool that helps eliminate headaches in business and allow you to work on other things.
So, WorkTruck recently published an article on good driving recognition. Can you talk a little bit more about how Netrodyne's Driver Eye accomplishes this?
Yeah. So I think there's maybe a macro view, and then there's a very individual view. And the one thing with the system that it does is, as the driver is driving throughout their day, and a vehicle for Stanley Steemer, they might be on the road for 8 to 10 hours a day. They may only be driving for 2 hours of those days, just because of the nature of their work. But in all that driving time frame, we actually can collect all the information and come back and say, hey, your driver 98% of the time did exactly what you asked them to do. It's a confirmation of their great driving, which doesn't cast the onus to Steve to guess. Right? Guessing it gets really messy and it's inconsistent. The moment that you can actually say, no, these drivers are my best driver because I have the data, that's really important. That's from a very macro view. From a very individual view, An instance that Steve had described, where someone cuts off one of the vehicles and they take an immediate action around how to create space. We actually label those as driver star events, and they are celebrated. And it's really the double-edged sword is it's not really celebrated because you expect the drivers to do it, but you really want the drivers to do what you've asked them to do. And it's a great feature to be able to actually say, yes, I saw that. You were in a tough situation, and I got your back. High five. Mm-hmm. So those are important characteristics to keep someone excited about working for Stanley Steemer or for the customer, for their fleet. It's important to us that the drivers feel good about the job that they're doing, and that driver eye can actually showcase that work.
That's excellent. Positive reinforcement definitely can go a very long way, and is something that I do think is missing from quite a few programs.
Yeah, it's interesting, Lauren. I saw an article. I was doing a little bit of research, and I came across a stat that said the lack of driver recognition or engagement is the number one reason why drivers leave fleets, right? Wow. So pay and all that, but just being appreciated for their job tends to be the number one reason why people leave your job, right? They don't feel appreciated. So the good news is things like appreciation and recognition, it doesn't have to break the bank, right? So I described, I've seen, Steve's invited me to a couple of driver meetings, and I've seen the meetings in the morning, and when everyone gets together and you have two people stand up in the room and you have everyone else clap for them, it doesn't cost anything, but it's extremely meaningful. And from the management perspective of Steve and Mark, who run a great organization, it's an easy thing to do, but they're very confident that they have the data to support it. So that's important, to be not guessing to when you recognize, but extending that recognition is really important. Drivers want to feel proud about what they do.
Right. Now that makes a lot of sense. Moving more into operational costs, insurance costs are sinking fleets these days. Is video telematics a potential solution to help turn this curve around?
Yeah, so I'm not so certain about the insurance premiums going down, right? I think the new norm is, how do you keep your insurance premium the same, right? How do you defend? How do you position your fleet where you are demonstrating a safety culture that has results and strong measurements and KPIs and touch points with the driver? I think a lot of cases, that effort and that programmatic approach really tends to stabilize that insurance cost. And there are a lot of cases where, things that can draw up insurance, a false claim against the driver, a false claim against the vehicle. And Steve described it earlier, where you get the finger pointed at you the wrong way. We have a saying that, if you're going to point a finger at your driver, we suggest thumbs up. The same token for the fleet, if you're going to have a finger pointed at the fleet saying you did this, and you can actually turn around and say, hold on, let's take a pause. Let's look at the video. It wasn't our driver. Those things are really great stabilizing statements that insurance companies feel have tremendous comfort in.
That's great. Let's switch gears over to looking at fleet specifically. So how do you believe fleet safety programs should be evolving?
So I think they are evolving. I think things like getting information to the fleets quicker is always important. Can you have an event that gets processed within seconds and starts to create meaningful workflow, right? So as an example, Steve had brought up the stop signs, right? Fleet drivers going through the stop sign or rolling through stop signs. By providing a little bit of guidance real time to the driver and say, you went through a stop sign, and the driver says, yeah, I did. That was me. And the moment that they can own it and they can self-correct, I think those are really powerful catalysts of safety performance improvement. And the timeliness of talking with drivers is becoming more and more. Maybe it's once a week, maybe it's once a day. It might evolve to once an hour. But is that time frame and that responsibility to talk with drivers, engage drivers on on a shorter time duration, I think technology really steps in to help, right? So how do you process the information very quickly that the conversation that you might have might be a person, or it might be, the camera system, but the conversation still has to happen. And how you do it, I think technology and the ability to take an event, process it real time, start to have that conversation is really important.
No, and I think you made a great point too about the driver's ability to self-correct and having the data to be able to make these changes themselves and empowering them to make some of these positive changes.
Yeah, I'll tell you that in working with Stanley Steemer, it's early days. Steve and I lived close to each other, and we were chatting about his fleet and what we were trying to do, and there was just a great synergy about the attitude around drivers that we both had. We both value the drivers. We both, in their case, it's, they're not only drivers, but they're, it's the face of the company that's coming into the residential and commercial properties. But Steve had mentioned earlier about the yellow trucks. I would actually tell you that it's the drivers with the red shirt and the white pants, which is the brand of the company. It's a very recognizable, predictable performance that happens. And so, as we both share the same emotion around drivers, it's really nice to see that, we've synced up and created something that, has strong alignment with what we're trying to do and what Steve really wants to do, with his fleet.
That is wonderful. Well, thanks again, Steve and Adam. I really appreciate your time today. And thanks to all of you who tuned in to today's episode of Truck Chat, sponsored by Netrodyne. If you want any more information on Netrodyne, Stanley Steemer, or driver recognition, check our links below and stay tuned for our next episode. Thanks.